Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating musical evolution. We're going to look at how a single ancient poetic tradition washed up on Malaysian shores and completely split in two, forming two entirely different, almost unrecognizable cultural identities.
I mean, think about it for a second. How on earth does an ancient Arabic love poem evolve into both a hyper-strict formal royal court performance and a wild stand-up stage comedy? It literally sounds like the setup to a joke, right? But as you'll see, this is the very real and incredibly rich history of Ghazal music in Malaysia.
Section 1. The Origins of Ghazal Music.
To really get this, we have to start at the absolute beginning. The word Ghazal literally translates to the language of love. Our sources tell us this started out as a deeply romantic poetry style, going all the way back to the pre-Islamic Jahiliyyah period. It was basically the go-to genre for love-struck Persian youth and Umayyad kings. The whole vibe was centered around affection, mysticism, and pure devotion.
Moving on to Section 2. The Journey to Malaya.
The geographic journey of Ghazal is honestly incredible. It starts in the deserts of Arabia in the 18th century, right? Then it migrates through the royal courts of Persia and India, picking up all sorts of new musical flavors along the way. By the 19th century, it finally takes root in the royal palaces of Realenga and Teluk Belanga, and from there, influential figures like Dato Bentara Lor championed it, spreading it across Johor and introducing it to new, bustling towns like Batu Pahat.
But here's a fun question. Who physically brought it to Malaya? Well, historians actually debate this. Some, like Dato Abdullah bin Muhammad, argue it was brought over by 19th century Indian merchants. But others, like Adiba Amin, link its arrival to early 20th century Persian theater troops traveling from India. Whichever theory is right, the result was exactly the same. The genre exploded. It quickly captivated everyone from military officers to local nobility, and they started blending this foreign sound with traditional Malay pantun poetry.
Which brings us to Section 3, Key Characteristics and Structure.
Now, underneath all that sweeping romance, Ghazal poetry actually has this strict, almost mathematical beauty to it. It's a highly disciplined art form, built out of couplets, usually 5 or more, and the rules are intense. The second line of every single couplet has to end with a repeating word or phrase, which is called a radif. Right before that radif is a rhyming word, the kafia. So it creates this rigid rhyming scheme like AA, BA, CA. And get this, there's absolutely no spilling over of sentences. Every single couplet must form a complete grammatical thought. It is incredibly precise.
All right. Let's look at how this evolved locally in Section 4, the elegance of Ghazal Johor.
When you listen to Ghazal Johor, that mesmerizing, pumping melody you hear heavily relies on the harmonium. It's a wind instrument, an aerophone, that was adopted directly from India, and it essentially forms the absolute melodic backbone of the entire performance. And if the harmonium is the melody, the tabla is the heartbeat. These are a pair of small Indian hand drums. The smaller one is called the din, and the larger one is the bam. They drive the rhythm and tempo forward, and in this specific genre, they completely replace traditional Malay drums. Now, to add a sweeping, emotional layer, they brought in the violin, often referred to locally as the biola. What's super fascinating here is that this Western instrument was adopted specifically to replace the traditional Indian charangi. Why? Because the violin just perfectly suited the emotional resonance of Malayas Li, or traditional songs. It was a perfect cultural fit.
Finally, anchoring the whole shebang back to its ancient Middle Eastern roots, we have the gambus, or oud. This is an Arabic lute, and it's plucked with extreme precision. When you put all of these together, the harmonium, the tabla, the violin, and the gambus, you get this truly unique cross-cultural orchestra that totally defines the Johor sound.
Now, what you really need to know about Ghazal Johor is its extreme formality. Seriously, this is not a party vibe. Performers sit very respectfully on the floor, men cross-legged or kneeling. They are dressed to the nines in pristine traditional Malay attire like the baju telek belanga for men and the baju kurung cekak musang for women. They play these classic Malayu asli songs, and importantly, there is absolutely zero dancing. None. It is all about seated elegance and strict etiquette.
But then, things get wild in Section 5, the vibrancy of Ghazal party.
If Ghazal Johor is a formal dinner, Ghazal party is a loud, standing-room-only celebration. In fact, the word party literally translates to crowd or gathering for public entertainment. So instead of soft-seated Malay melodies, What do you get? You get energetic Middle Eastern desert rhythms, singers standing up, completely different instruments like the accordion and bongo drums, and a whole lot of dancing.
But the absolute craziest part is the historical twist that shaped it. Back in the late 1940s, religious leaders in the North actually banned female dancers from performing. So, what did Ghazal Party do? They brilliantly and somewhat hilariously adapted. Men just started dancing in women's clothing. They'd wear hijabs and sarongs just to keep the visual entertainment alive for the crowd. On top of that, because these shows lasted for hours, they started throwing in these hilarious verbal comedy sketches right in the middle of the set. Why? Literally just to give the musicians a chance to rest their hands.
Let's put this all together in Section 6, the two faces of Malaysian Ghazal.
So as you can see, this one ancient poetic tradition basically fractured into night and day. On one side in the south, you have the strict, elegant, seated Johor style. It's heavily focused on traditional Malay songs and formal dress. And then on the other side, up north, you have the wild, comedic dancing party of Ghazal Party, rocking fast-paced Arabic desert rhythms and theatrical flair. They share the exact same name, but they offer two wildly different cultural experiences.
But despite these wild differences, both of these forms represent a beautiful synthesis of global influences becoming uniquely, undeniably Malaysian. And the great news is that today, institutions like the Yayasan Negeri Johor are actively teaching Ghazal as a co-curricular subject in primary schools. They're doing this to ensure this incredible cross-cultural heritage doesn't just get swallowed up by modern pop culture. It's literally a living, breathing reflection of the nation's diverse history.
So I'll leave you with this thought to ponder. If a simple, ancient desert poem about love can travel across oceans, mix with Indian and Western instruments, and ultimately split into two totally different cultural juggernauts in Malaysia, well, what modern everyday trends are we mixing and building right now? What current blend of global pop culture is going to become the deeply revered formal tradition of our future? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep looking for the history hiding in the music around you.